All right, let's jump straight into Module 2 of our Explainer series, where we're tackling the regulatory framework for GMP audits. If you're working in regulated life sciences, you already know the regulations can feel like a totally overwhelming alphabet soup, right? I mean, FDA, EMA, WHO, PIC/S, ICH, it's a lot. But what we're going to do today is take those dense regulatory expectations and translate them into a crystal clear view of what they actually mean for you on the ground. Because at the end of the day, understanding this framework is really about building your absolute first line of defense. So let's get into it. To really grasp why regulators are so relentless about audits, we've got to start with a question that sets the stakes for literally everything we do in this industry. Think about this for a second. When a drug is being manufactured and shipped out, what actually poses the highest risk to the patient at the very end of that line? Is it a single failed batch, maybe a labeling mix-up, or a power outage at a facility somewhere? Actually, the answer isn't just a single failed batch. The ultimate, absolute highest risk to a patient is the weakest link in your highly fragmented supply chain. You know as well as I do that modern pharma manufacturing doesn't just happen under one roof anymore. A single product might touch, a dozen different specialized facilities across multiple continents before it ever sees the inside of a clinic? It's a massive, complex global web, and a chain is literally only as strong as its weakest link. This vulnerability is exactly why global regulators mandate such rigorous, evidence-driven audit programs. They know they can't be everywhere at once, right? So they require you to police that chain for them. Now, to effectively secure that chain, we first need to understand the rule makers themselves, and it really helps to mentally divide them into two main camps, the national enforcers and the global harmonizers. On one side, we've got the national enforcers. Think of the US FDA coming in with their infamous 483s and warning letters, or the EMA over in Europe, working through national authorities to enforce local laws. But then on the flip side, we have the global harmonizers. These are groups like the World Health Organization and PIC/S, the Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme, which actually spans over 50 regulatory authorities worldwide. These harmonizers aren't the ones out there writing tickets. Instead, they're driving convergence. They're building unified, globally accepted standards so that an inspection expectation in one country closely mirrors the expectation in another. And when you look at them side by side, it's pretty amazing how all these different regulatory bodies actually converge on one single truth. Whether you're looking at the FDA's 21 CFR, Europe's EU GMP Chapter 9, WHO's Annex 2, or the PIC/S standards, despite their completely different jurisdictions and specific wordings, they all share one harmonized expectation. You must have an independent periodic audit or self-inspection program. The shared mandate across the board is crystal clear. It is your responsibility to find and fix problems way before the regulators do, and definitely before those problems reach the patients. Okay, so those national regulations act as your legal mandate. But the actual engine driving your day-to-day compliance, that's ICH Q10. Created by the International Council for Harmonization, ICH Q10 lays out the Pharmaceutical Quality System, or PQS. And the big takeaway here is that under Q10, your internal audit program is absolutely not some optional, nice-to-have side project. No way. It is an explicit, core, non-negotiable pillar of your quality system. It sits right up there alongside critical functions like CAPA, change control, and management review. Simply put, if your audit program is weak, your entire PQS is fundamentally compromised in the eyes of any inspector. And here's the thing. That engine doesn't just run on some arbitrary fixed schedule. It is powered entirely by ICH Q9, which governs quality risk management. Seriously, gone are the days of the standard calendar-based audit. All regulatory frameworks now explicitly demand that your audit scope and frequency be completely risk-based. You can't just look at a critical supplier and say, well, we'll audit them once every 3 years because, that's what the calendar says. You have to use established risk management tools, like an FMEA, to figure out process criticality. If a site or a process poses a higher risk to product quality or data integrity, you audit it deeper and you audit it more frequently. End of story. Let's take this to the real-world battlefield and see how this quickly balloons into an enormous undertaking. Just picture the journey of a single biologic drug. First, it starts with the API manufacturer. Then, it gets shipped to a contract manufacturing organization for fill-finish. From there, samples are sent off to an outsourced QC lab. Then it's on to labeling, shipped to a warehouse, handed over to a distributor, and then finally, it arrives at the hospital. That creates a massive audit footprint. As the sponsor, you are legally on the hook for auditing that API supplier, the CMO, the QC lab, and the labeling facility. Every single one of those transfer points is a potential vulnerability that demands your direct regulatory oversight. Because let's face the harsh reality here. Regulators like the FDA or EMA are only ever going to inspect selected links in that chain. They just don't have the manpower to look at every single thing. So they fully expect you to act as the proxy regulator. Your internal and supplier audit program serves as the absolute first line of defense. It's the primary shield protecting your company from nasty regulatory actions, and much more importantly, it's what protects the patient from harm.
All right, let's put this into practice with a quick real-world scenario. Imagine this. Your company outsources some really critical quality control lab work to a contract research organization, a CRO. Now, an inspector is showing up in exactly 2 months. You're looking through your files and you suddenly realize, there is zero supplier audit evidence for the CRO. But wait, the CRO is ISO 17025 accredited, and they always provide a certificate of analysis, or COA, with their results. So what's your call? Do you just rely on that ISO accreditation and the COA, or do you bite the bullet and run a full supplier audit?
Well, if you said run the audit, you hit the nail right on the head. You absolutely, undoubtedly must run that audit. An ISO 17025 accreditation and a certificate of analysis do not and literally will never substitute for a sponsor's own GMP oversight. And trust me, inspectors know this. When that inspector walks through your doors in 2 months, they are going to ask to see your specific supplier audit evidence. Your audit needs to be scoped directly to their highest risk tests and dive deep, I mean really deep, into their data integrity practices.
When inspectors are digging through your program, they're hunting for some very specific red flags. These are the top mistakes companies make that practically invite regulatory action. First off, having an audit program that is totally unaligned with those global frameworks we just talked about. Second, having auditors who completely ignore recent Form 483 or warning letter themes. I mean, if the FDA is actively cracking down on data integrity, your audits had better reflect that. Third, missing glaring gaps in your supply chain because you falsely assumed that an outsourced process just isn't our problem. And finally, relying on an arbitrary audit frequency with zero linkage to ICH-Q9 quality risk management. If your audit scope feels random to an inspector, you are absolutely going to get cited.
So, as we wrap up this explainer on the regulatory framework, I really want you to take a hard look at your own quality management system. Think about those global regulations. Think about the strict mandates of ICH Q10 and Q9, and picture that massive, highly fragmented supply chain footprint you oversee. And I want to leave you with this final, absolutely critical question. If regulators traced your entire supply chain today, right now, would your audit program be your strongest first line of defense, or would it be your weakest link? Take those insights straight back to your quality teams today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.